How you doing, Mark?
I'm all right, Cam. How you doing?
Yeah, very good. Enjoying the summer weather while we've got it. So,
Yeah,
uh,
absolutely. Although the hay fever seems to be getting up my nose again, which is not so cool.
yeah,
But yeah, it's nice to have some reasonably warm. I mean, it was raining here yesterday, but it was still nice and warm, so it's
yeah, yeah,
kind of nice.
yeah. It's a good
Um,
trade-off. Now,
but yeah, now hang
before
on,
we
hang on, hang on,
start,
hang on. Yes, before we start, what do you want to talk about, Cam? Before we start,
well, before we start, I think our producer Joel is going to have a go at us if we don't do it the proper way. So, can I
exactly.
leave you to just do the intro as such?
Alrighty. Okay, so we have a Patreon page, everyone. um, please do sign up. It's £2.50 a month. You get early release of the episodes, and you get a shout out on this episode. Well, on subsequent episodes, obviously, which you will hear at the end of this one. So please do. It's only £2.50. It's not even a pint of beer. So yeah, and it really does help us and support the pod. So thank you very much, guys.
Good stuff. Okay, so on today's show, we're going to be talking about a couple of things. We're going to be talking about the health and well-being of our fellow photographers, and what are we all doing to look after ourselves, and do we do anything at all? And the other thing is also camera modes as well. We're going to be talking about camera modes and what is your preferred mode of shooting. When should you change camera mode? Do you change mode, or do you just leave it in auto and just go with it? I'll let you put your headphones on.
Yeah, I
And
completely forgot to put my headphones on. I'm ever so sorry, guys. I hope. Yeah, we've been really busy. We're not really on the ball at the moment, are
this
we?
is the this is the pro. This is two this is two photographers with too many other things going on.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, too
so
many things.
okay. Good stuff. Okay, so right, we're going to start off talking about camera modes, Mark. So, if you were going out to do a shoot, and let's say you're going out to do a fashion shoot,
Mm,
out on location, and you were handed a camera, and you didn't have any time to think about what you were going to do. What mode would you put your camera in if you could only stick to that one mode?
manual,
Short time, didn't have. Sorry.
manual,
Manual, right?
manual.
Okay,
Yeah.
right. Okay. So first of all, I think manual mode has been made far more user friendly, shall we say, with the advent of mirrorless cameras. Would you
Mm,
agree?
absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It gets a little bit trickier when you start putting flash on because you don't get that as accurate exposure in the viewfinder, but as in exposure preview. But yeah, generally, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Yeah. So that's one thing. But a lot of people out there are shooting on DSLRs, even bridge cameras that some of our listeners might be using. But so if you were using a DSLR though, Mark, then what would be your quick go-to mode?
Manual.
You'd stick in manual on
I've always shot.
DSLR as well.
So if we're doing like a wedding or a fashion shoot, yeah, it'd be manual. Obviously, you have meter readings and things in there, but you don't. Yeah, because I guess I know what I want the camera to do, and if I
Mm.
use an automatic mode, then the camera does what it wants to do. There are certain exceptions. Maybe if there's something fast going on, maybe if I was photographing some sporting event or something like that, I might choose shutter priority because you want the fast shutter. Um,
Mm.
but generally, I think I would use manual mode.
Yeah, so I guess if I look back when I was shooting DSLR, and let's just say, yeah, I was going to go out and shoot an outdoor event, not using flash, whether it's a corporate event, whether it's a wedding, whatever it is, doesn't really matter. I would generally go with either aperture. More often than not, I'd go aperture priority or even program. Okay,
Oh, really?
with an event. Okay, yeah, I would. Yeah, okay, and if I'm shooting in the studio with products, then it's flash and it's in manual anyway, regardless of what
Mm,
camera
yeah.
that you're using. Okay, and if obviously on mirrorless, then yeah, it's been manual more or less
Mm,
since I got it actually. When because you can see exactly what you're getting. But I think a lot of people don't actually aren't actually 100% sure what modes to shoot at and why. Obviously, you've got your auto mode, and I think when
mm,
most people start out in photography, I know through the teaching, and the sessions that I do, that I would say 9.5 times out of 10 people that come to me, not enough people out of 10 yet come to me will be in auto mode because they don't know what other modes to go for. So the first thing I say to them really is don't use auto mode ever again. And don't use, if your camera's got the little symbols, the modes where you've got the little man running, you've got the little plants and all of that. Okay.
Portrait mode and sport mode.
Exactly. It's just ignore all of those. You've got 4 modes. You've got manual, aperture priority, shutter priority, and program mode. They're the only 4 modes that you're ever going to need.
Okay. So what's the difference between program and auto?
Okay. So one of the things I would say is in auto is that if you've got a pop-up flash, that your flash will pop up.
Right.
Okay. So that's one thing. And in program mode, that flash doesn't pop up. And the other thing is, and I'm not sure about this because I have to be honest, I've never really used auto mode. And if I did, I'm going back to my teens or something.
I see them as very much similar things.
Program mode and the exposure. Yeah, there's exposure compensation. I don't know if that works in auto mode. I don't think it does. So now I might be wrong because I don't know about auto mode. I don't know enough about it. My main thing is that just the flash pops up. And I think in program mode,
did you use one of those cameras with an inbuilt flash?
No. What I've seen is a lot of students that come to me that when they've got cameras, I say most of them, the cameras they've got have got the built-in flash. So that's the the little pop-up flash. Now, so they're the 2 big things, and I think program mode is the next sort of, it ups the sort of, it's as near as auto mode that you can get. I think it's the automatic mode for professionals, I guess is the way of putting it. But I find program mode is actually very, very good because it tends to open up your aperture to its widest just by default, which is good.
Well, it's not always good.
No, but I think if you know that's what it does, if that's what you want, then I always felt that was a good thing for me. ISO, you can still put it into auto ISO. I never use auto ISO. Now, the one thing about the Canon, the Canons that we're using, the R6, and I was using someone's R5 going back recently as well, is that it's really easy without realizing to put the camera into auto ISO mode. And and we've never mentioned this before, but I think that's one thing I really wish Canon would sort out. I don't know whether other Canon users have found it. You see, I know we all have our cameras set differently, what buttons, we assign different buttons to our cameras. Now, I've got the dial on the back that adjusts my ISO because I use ISO all the time. And it happens a fair amount that I dial it and I turn it and it goes to auto ISO and I don't realize straight away. And I was using someone's Canon R5 last week and he's got his buttons assigned differently, and every time I adjusted the ISO, for some reason it kept going to auto ISO, and it was
basically if you go all the way down past 100, it then goes to auto. And
that's right.
Quickly doing something and you don't realize, then and you've over clicked basically, then you're on auto and you're like, what is going on here?
And so I think some people might like that, but I can't see anyone that does. For people that don't want to use auto ISO, and I would never feel comfortable using auto ISO. You want that more control. So, but I think program is a really good mode, particularly if you're starting out in photography, and also if you are at an event or you're somewhere where you've got to shoot quickly, and all you want to do is just concentrate on what you're shooting rather than the settings. Okay, then go to program mode. Okay, if you're not worried about the shutter speed, and you let's forget about camera shake for a moment and freezing and movement, all that.
Hang on. That's quite a big omission here, Cam. Come on. No, I see.
No,
if I may, I find this difficult really because when I was learning photography, I was using a Pentax ME Super, which didn't have program mode and aperture priority and shutter speed priority. It was just fully manual. So you kind of had to know what things do. I'm not a big fan. I'm not a big fan of auto mode. I'm not a big fan of program mode, to be honest with you, because, like I was saying, the camera's taking over and deciding for you, and I don't like that. Aperture priority and shutter speed priority, I have more truck with, to be honest with you, because if you're going, well, this is the light, everything's happening quickly, I need it to be the fastest shutter speed possible, so shutter speed priority. I completely understand that because you're making that decision. But program mode, it kind of does it all for you, and I don't like losing that control, to be honest with you. And when you said things like forget camera shake, no, don't forget camera shake, because if you're in an event and it's kind of a little bit dark, and you're on program mode, and the program mode has gone to, I don't know, f2.8 if you have a 2.8 lens, and 60th of a second, you might be getting camera shake all over the place, and you need to know about that.
No, you do. I think what I'm saying is, I think it's more a case of, and I was saying that particularly if you're a beginner, and what you want to do is you just want to go out and you want to shoot pictures, and you just want to get good exposures. Okay, you're not worried about freezing movement. You're not worried about depth of field. You just want to go out and you just want to get good pictures. You want to concentrate more on what are you actually shooting, rather than the fine detail of, right, I've got great depth of field, I've picked up some camera movement here, I've done all that. I just want to go out and shoot some good pictures, but I want to concentrate more on what I'm actually shooting on. Okay, and then I think program mode in that instance is a really good option, because you can really let the camera do everything for you. If you know a little bit about exposure compensation, then you've got the added bonus of using exposure compensation in program mode. But I think what it does, I think it allows for more inexperienced photographers, or photographers that, even experienced photographers that aren't used to mode so much, about thinking about what, you see, because put it this way, let's just say you go out with a camera and you think, I'm going to put it on shutter priority. And then you look back at the pictures and you think, actually, they're not great pictures, but why? The content isn't great. You know, there's pictures of people, they're not smiling, or it's architecture and the angles aren't correct. In other words, it's just a poorly taken picture, regardless of what mode that you've got it on. In other words, concentrate on what you're actually shooting and your composition, and then think about the technical aspect. I know a lot of people that are really good technically, but they still don't take good pictures because they get hung up on, oh, but I had it on this aperture because I wanted to get this. Yeah, but it's just not a good picture because it's just been taken from the wrong angle. It's just, it's not been taken at the decisive moment.
Of course, people need to think about that kind of thing. Yeah. But I think they're equally as important, to be honest with you, Cam. I think obviously composition, angles, all that kind of stuff you're talking about. But if you don't know how to expose something, and you don't know how to use the correct tool in your camera, and we're talking very basic tools here. It's the sort of thing you had on the ME Super, for example. You don't know how to use that. I think that I'm afraid I think that is as important as all the things you just said. So no, I still don't think program mode's the one to do. I think you need to learn to do both, because that's the skill, isn't it? That's the skill, is to make sure that you've got the right settings that you want and getting that good picture.
But they come hand in hand. It's a bit like saying you've got to learn both. Okay, but in my opinion, is that learn how to compose photos, let the camera do the exposure for you at first, start to learn it, and then once you know how to expose, take really good shots, like when you know about filling the frame, when you know about rule of thirds, when you know about negative space, when you know about all of those things, and how to balance good pictures, and you know about sort of timing and when to press the button, and you know how to take sharp pictures as well. You know how to focus as well. I think those things can come, and let the camera take care of in program mode of the actual settings, and then gradually learn those. Because as I said, I don't think it's any good knowing, right, I need to shoot this at 125th at f8 because I'm going to get the best exposure here, when you don't actually know how to compose a picture or use rule of thirds or negative space or anything like that. They both matter, but I think in the first instance, when you're starting out, it's fine to start off on program mode, or if you're at a shoot and you don't have a lot of time to think about things, stick it in program mode.
But I think
let the camera do that, and you concentrate on the content, because the one thing that
shutter speed and aperture, shutter speed and depth of field is content. That's what I'm trying to say.
It is, but okay. So here's the thing. Okay, so your camera, if you put it in program mode, you put it in shutter priority, you put it in aperture priority, it will set those settings for you automatically, won't it? Okay, in program. Yeah. Okay, it does do that. The camera does that. Now, if you put it in program mode, 9 times out of 10, it's going to get a perfect exposure for you. Forget about whether you wanted a background out of focus and all that, but I'm just talking about a well-exposed photo without the technical aspect of the depth of field. It's just a well-exposed photo. Okay, now the camera will do that for you. Now, what the camera doesn't do, it doesn't tell you where to take your picture from. It doesn't tell you at what moment to press the button. It doesn't tell you to move to the left a bit or move right a bit, or it doesn't say to you, right? But that's what I'm saying. I think is learn those things and initially let the camera just take care of some of the exposure, and you learn to see what is the right exposure, and then start saying, well, I'm going to start introducing and learning depth of field and aperture.
So yeah, but I'm not sure if it's just about exposure. Anyway, we're going around in circles here, I think, because actually I think you're right. You need to know rule of thirds, and you need to know how to compose, but you also need to know, well, depth of field does this. And if let's say there's a budding sports photographer in your class, right, and there's a marathon going on in the local town, and he or she wants to go down and practice taking it. Well, I wouldn't say go program mode, because all program mode is going to do is go, well, there's this amount of light and blah 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 blah. It's going to choose the medium. It's going to go for neutral grey, which is what the meters always meter for, and then just take that, and you might have blurred runners. So to see what I'm saying, but it's important to know. Well, actually, if you go up to, I don't know, it depends how fast these people are running. Of course, marathon runners don't speed down the road.
Let's say your average jogger. Let's say your average jogger.
Let's say, yeah, okay. So they're going pretty quickly. You'd want to be on at least 1/60th or maybe even 2/50th, just to make sure, if you want to get that still picture. However, the app photographer might go, well, I want to actually have a bit of movement in. I want that movement. Okay, well then you need to know. You need to go down to 60th of a second, or whatever the equivalent is.
I would totally agree.
But I think that's as important as rule of thirds. I think knowing that stuff is as important, which is why I've never been a fan of program modes, because it kind of introduces it later. I know what you're saying. You're basically saying, look, let the camera sort out the exposure, and then you work out how to compose a photo, which I understand that rule of thinking. Yeah. But I think what I'm trying to say is part of that content, part of that sort of composing a picture is knowing that shutter speed, if you're on 60th of a second and you want to take a still picture of a car and it's moving, you ain't going to get it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The camera won't get it for you.
So no, I totally agree with you. Okay. However, you have to start somewhere. Like if you're going to pick up the guitar, okay, you're going to learn the most basic chords first, aren't you? You're not going to learn your scales and trying to play a solo. You're going to learn basic chords first. So that's going to be the structure of what. That's the structure of.
I'll do finger exercises, but there you go. You see, that's
no. But when you first picked up the guitar, what was the first thing that you learned? Did you learn a chord?
No,
I remember right. Okay, well, the first thing I learned first thing I learned were chords, and then I went to scales from.
You see, well, I didn't.
Okay, right.
I went to. I was finger exercises, and actually I read basic music when I started. So, and it was learning what all the different notes were and playing the notes, and it was technique of your fingers. So having on the tips of your fingers and all that. We're talking guitar stuff now, which is not what this is about. But no, I didn't learn a chord until quite a lot later on.
But regardless of how you. But regardless how you learnt it, you have to have a starting point somewhere, don't you?
Do.
So if someone came to me and said, "Look, I've got these pictures. Look at that amazing depth of field. Look at that. I've got that runner in the background blurred." I'm thinking, yeah, but you've cut his head off.
Right? Well, of course that's a problem. I'm not saying it's you forget about composure. Composition rather. I'd say you need to get the head in.
Okay.
I mean, but the other thing is, it's interesting because you use the guitar analogy. I mean, I wasn't learning to compose songs when I first started. Do you know what I mean? I was learning how to use the instrument, and I guess with the camera, I think that's what I'm trying to say. With the camera, that's the instrument, isn't it? So you need to learn what the tools do. You need to know all these different things.
Yeah, but this conversation we're having is really good, because I think if you put this conversation out to 5 photographers, everyone would have different viewpoints, and it's quite good actually, rather than you and I just sort of saying,
agreeing all the time.
Yes, this is structured. You do this, and this. We all have different ways of working. Okay, so I think program mode is there to be taken advantage of, okay, particularly when you're starting out, or I think if you're in a hurry and you don't want to get bogged, you don't want to be thinking about it, you just want to get pictures. That's sort of my view on that, okay? Obviously, if you're really experienced as you and I are, we can work in any mode. We can think about all of those things, okay? So, but we'll sort of look at it as far as people from at all abilities. Then you've got shutter and then you've got shutter speed, shutter priority, and you've got aperture priority. Forgetting manual for a moment, let's put those to one side. So when would a photographer put it into aperture priority? What?
Well, I guess. I mean, it's not something I use a lot, aperture priority, to be honest with you. I'm guessing it would really be for, well, a copy photographers, I guess. If you're copying an artwork, you want to make sure you get the depth of field and clarity. You don't want any you don't want any depth of field really. But again, that might be a flat piece. It depends on the artwork, I guess. If it's a sculpture, for example, I think you'd want a high depth of field. I guess product photographers. I mean, when you're shooting products, do you tend to want a higher?
Yeah, because you want to get the product.
Would you put that on aperture priority though?
No, because in the studio, it's with Studio Flash anyway. So when you're shooting products, yes, you want to get the whole product, in focus from front to back.
Of course. Aperture priority. I don't know why you would want to use aperture priority. I don't know. It's not something but that doesn't necessarily mean it's useless. I'm just saying it's not something. I tend to use those modes if I have to do something quick. And that tends to be because something's moving fast. So therefore, I would go for shutter priority. Do you know what I mean? That's why I would use shutter priority, because I need to do something quick and there's something quick moving.
So let's talk, but going back to aperture priority for a moment. See,
why do you use aperture priority? Was that something that you would use?
No, not really. But you could use it in situations where you would use it. Architectural photography, say for example,
yes.
If you're doing architecture, you just want to go to the highest aperture, okay, and
landscape photography,
landscape photography is another one where you're not worried about movement. Yeah, okay, movement is not an issue, okay, so you don't, because there is nothing that's moving, okay, it's absolutely fine. But you're purely concentrating on, right, I've got to take a picture of this building. I want it sharp front to back. It's all that matters. It doesn't really matter. I've got my camera on a tripod, which is even better, right? Then you put it on aperture priority. You think, right, okay, I'm going to start off at the highest aperture setting.
Or just put it on manual.
No, what I'm saying is, where would you use aperture priority?
Well, you see, this is the thing. I would stick it on manual in that instance. That's why I'm struggling to find.
Oh yeah, no. Oh right, okay. No, I would, but that's me. What I'm saying is which instance? Let's put some instances where you could use aperture priority, for example. Okay, right, okay, and putting manual to one side. So I would say landscape photography and architectural photography, and you said copy photography. They're your sort of perfect examples. But also the other thing is, let's just say you want to do some portraits and you want to get the background completely out of focus, and you want to just do some pictures or some fashion photography, and you're not worried about movement at all. Whether you freeze the movement or you show movement doesn't really matter. But let's say you've got a model that's walking and you want to get some beautiful depth of field, you want to just drop the backgrounds out of focus, and you're not worried about shutter speed as well, and you're just purely concentrating on that depth of field, and you want the person sharp, then that's another instance where you might say, okay, I'm just going to put it onto aperture priority. I'll put it at 2.8 if that's where my lens goes to, or if it goes to 1.8 or 1.2 or 4 or 5, whatever it is. But I'm thinking that's all I'm thinking about. That's instance I want to put it on. Now, when it comes to shutter priority, that's when you want to freeze movement or you want to show something movement, so like a car or anything that's moving, a person walking, a person running, then you're not really worried about depth of field too much, or if you're not worried about depth of field. Okay. Now, when you go to manual mode, it might be that you just want to work in manual mode because you're totally confident with what you're going to get. You're not worried about aperture, but you're worried about shutter. So you're still just adjusting your shutter speed, but you've still got it in manual mode. And manual mode is, especially with mirrorless, because you can see exactly what's happening right in your viewfinder. Obviously, you can't. You don't know what the movement is, whether it's frozen or whether it's blurred, until you've actually shot the picture. That's the one thing that you can't obviously see. But I think certainly when you've got a mirrorless, then manual is the mode to go to. That's when I think is go to that. I think there's not many instances where you would think about using shutter priority or aperture priority.
I can see shutter priority again, just for those instances where you've got to do
maybe
something
shutter
quick.
Yeah,
let's say something's going on, you're at a wedding, suddenly something's going on and the bride and groom are having some sack race or something, which can happen. And you think, oh my word, okay, so quickly stick it on shutter, and then you haven't got the blurs, unless you want the blurs. Again, it's really down to your choice, but nevertheless you can make that decision a lot quicker than if you're doing it in manual mode, I'd suggest.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think either way, whatever mode that you decide to use, I think there's the 4 modes: program, shutter priority, aperture priority, and manual are the 4 modes to be aware of.
Yeah.
Okay. I think if you grasp those modes and you start to experiment with them, you don't need to be changing modes for every single shot you do. Okay. In certain situations, you put it on one mode and you think, great, I'm going to stick with this because I feel comfortable with it. It's going to get me through the shoot. I'm absolutely fine. And once you start to get familiar with the other modes, for me now, I could just have that one manual mode for the way that I work. For me, it suits me. But for some people, it wouldn't work. But I'm aware of, why do I need to go to shutter speed? Why do I need to go to aperture? Why do I need to go to program? And I think you then find your own way of working. I think for those of you shooting in auto, just try and get off auto. From auto, go to program as your first step, and then start to look at manual, then start to look at shutter and aperture. But get rid of using that auto mode. If you go into program mode, learn what exposure value does. That's the little plus and minus setting that's on your cameras if you're not sure what it is. But if you figure that out, and I think program mode using exposure value is great, because if you take a picture in program mode and it's slightly dark, you can just use that exposure value compensation just to tweak it a little bit, make it a little bit brighter or make it a little bit darker. And I think in program mode, that's invaluable. And I still use that every now and again, but every so often, but more often than not, it's sort of manual mode. But learn your modes. I think it's important. It is important. I think that's what we're trying to say. So
absolutely.
Okay.
Right. Quick break.
Yeah, let's grab a drink. Okay, right, Mark. So health and well-being. Often taken for granted.
Yeah. I mean, I think we have spoken about this before, and about how we find it. I mean, obviously we've been away, haven't we, in Portsmouth? We're not sure if we've mentioned it before, but yeah, we have been away. And obviously, we're in hotel rooms for like a week and a half or whatever it is, and you're basically eating out every day, which is hard, I guess, because the temptation is to go for something cheap, which is generally not that great. There's also the temptation to go for something quick, because, if you've done a 12-hour day, which we did a few of those, you just really want to go to bed because you're up at, I don't know, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock the next morning. But none of these things are particularly great for your health, I guess.
They're not, no. And I think, if you want to eat well, let's talk about food for a moment. If you want to eat well, it's more expensive. Okay. Good food, healthy food is more expensive than eating rubbish. So if it comes down to purely, I just want to save money, I don't want to spend a lot of money, then the chances is that your diet's not going to be as good. And I think that comes down, and I think that's a shame. I think it's a lot of people that don't have the budgets, the finances. I'm not talking about photographers generally. I'm talking about just generally the public as a whole.
It's an issue. This country does have an obesity problem, and that is pretty much a big reason for it.
Yeah, because it's easy to go out and buy cheaper to go out and buy a multi-bag of crisps and chocolates and stuff like that are £6 for a pound or something silly, right? Than going out and buying some bananas and some melons, say, for example.
Well, yeah. Obviously, I was using the Portsmouth example here, but I tell you what, sometimes when I get home at about 9 o'clock and I haven't had my dinner yet, what am I going to do? Am I going to start making all these, cutting up all the veg and everything, and then I'm eating at 10:30, or am I just going to shove a pizza in the oven? It is difficult, and like you say, it's not just a photography issue. This is working in general. I mean, there's some people out there who have 2 jobs because of their low wages. I'm not going to get all political here, but and they might have kids, and they've got to do the shopping, and they've got to feed the kids, and it's all going to be very. But just bringing it back to the realm of photographers, it is difficult. I mean, there are stuff out. I mean, what do you think about that Huel stuff? I'm sure there are other products available and other manufacturers available, but
yeah, I mean, to me, those, and not naming names. Okay,
yeah. Well, I didn't know what else to call it. So
Okay, right. Okay, but personally, I don't think any of them are any good. regardless of how well they're marketed and how inviting they look. And I've been tempted. I just don't like because they are full of sugars, preservatives. Even if they say they're sugar-free, they're not. They are chemical-based. They're not natural foods. They're not meal replacements. I just, I think they're worse for you than,
Is this something you've looked into, or is it just a thought? Because we've got to be careful here, because there might be someone listening from that manufacturer that we mentioned, and they're going, "Hang on a minute, this is nonsense. This is actually true. This is blah 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 blah." Just to put in. So
for me, if I look on the back of any product and if you list it and if you look at the actual ingredients, first of all, if the print is too small for you to actually read the ingredients because it's a long list, and then it's not a good thing. Okay, so I think there's that. So let's just say, for example, that when we were away, I did try and I did try and eat well. So say in the mornings, my breakfast was a porridge. I'd have a banana with it, and then the few times I went in a little bit later because I went downstairs to the restaurant in the hotel. No, because I was going to say was I was editing while I was having breakfast. So what I did was I had
a working breakfast.
Yeah. So I'd have scrambled eggs, brown toast. I'd have some fruit with some Greek yogurt, and that would be my breakfast. And I wasn't having bacon, sausage. I wasn't having the meats, which, as tempting as they were, I was forcing myself not to have those. So, and then the mornings I had 2 mornings I did that, and then the other mornings I had porridge, banana, and I cut the banana up, put it into the porridge, and I bought some mixed nuts as well. And I put those in as well. So
the porridge that you had, was that like one of those instant pots that you get?
Yeah, okay, but it wasn't a flavored one. It was just natural, just a normal. It wasn't golden syrup. It wasn't cinnamon and anything else. It was just a plain yogurt, because those other yogurts that are flavored, they've
porridges.
Porridges. Sorry, they've got too many sugars in, so they've got flavorings and sugars, so they're not good. And I'm sure the natural ones as well. I don't know what goes in there, but some of the natural ones now they've started putting dried milk in those as well. So I've been taking the dried milk out and just filling it up with water. You can see the dried milk bits they have in there as well. So that's hard to do. And then when it came for lunch, then I would I was trying to avoid bread because it's really easy just through habit of getting a baguette, a sandwich, or something like that.
Which is what I did a lot in Portsmouth.
Yeah, and I was trying to not to have any meat either. So so I was sort of careful with lunch. But then the evening is when it was difficult, because while we were away, Mark, as you know, we went to a Jamaican restaurant, we went Vietnamese, we went Korean.
I mean, we did go for a bit. I guess some of it was better than others. I mean, I can't imagine the Jamaican. I mean, the Jamaican food was beautiful, but
all the food,
I don't know how. I mean, I had jerk pork, and I'm not sure how healthy that was, but I mean, it was lovely. But the Vietnamese food, though, and the Korean food, what did you reckon that was?
Yeah, so I think it was. I ordered like an aubergine dish, and it had lots of vegetables in there. And as a side, I did order some chicken wings. Okay, but generally, I tried to keep it vegetarian. Now, but I'm not saying vegetarian food is healthy, because vegetarian food is very healthy. If it's a healthy meal, you can have very bad vegetarian food. And same with vegan. Vegan food is not healthy. If you're eating bought ready-made vegan foods, But I think what it is as photographers, we need to be aware of what we eat, because we need to be fit, not just physically fit, but we need to be mentally fit as well, don't we, Mark? Because we have to think on the spot. And I think that's what I'm getting at. As we get older, we have to be conscious of how we feel. We have to be conscious of those things, because it's very well drinking and eating crap food. The more that you have, the more that you just become addicted to it. And it's very easy to say, oh, well, I really needed something. I needed that sugar rush. It made me feel good. It made me feel, I needed it. I felt like I needed it. But I think it's trying to get out of that mode. And that mode is not easy to get out of. And I think if we all have that awareness, and I was listening to a podcast yesterday, which is what made me sort of think about this. And this podcast was really good, because he was saying that more often than in life, that you hear all of this advice is do that, don't do this, cut this out, cut that out. And he was saying so much of it is down to the mental approach. And it's a great way of thinking about it. He was saying that if there's foods that you want to cut out, okay, that don't think about cutting out foods. Don't think, right, I'm going to stop eating crisps. I'm going to stop eating chocolates. I'm going to stop having cans of this or cans of that. Is try to think, I'm going to introduce something into my diet that's good. Okay. Start introducing good things. So rather than taking things away from you, like I'm going to cut this out and cut that out, that's always a negative. Okay. Try and think that I'm going to add this to my diet. Oh, I'm going to have a couple of pieces of fruit today. I'm going to add this to my diet. I'm going to add this to my diet. Rather than thinking I'm going to cut this out, cut that out. If you start to add those things, you automatically start to think, okay, well, I won't have that bag of crisps because you're not taking it away from yourself. You know, they say it's like your points on your driving license. You know, if you get points on a driving license, they say
I wouldn't know anything about that.
Right? Okay. They say that, you know, if you get caught speeding, let's just say I don't have any points on my driving license first. Okay. Let's just, I have had in the past. Okay?
Yes, I have done.
But... That you get 3 points or whatever it is, or you get 6 points. Why don't they just say that you start with 12 points and that if you get caught speeding, you lose 3 points, you lose 6 points. It's a more of a mental approach. Okay. But the food, coming back to the food analogy, I think that's really good. Is don't say, right, after this, right, I'm going to cut out all the crap that I'm eating. I'm not going to have any more chocolates and crisps. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to have a healthy lunch because it's not sustainable. It's just say, I'm going to make sure I have something new in my diet, something I've not had before, or I'm going to have a banana today because I never eat fruit.
Awesome stuff. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Cam. It's very good. I mean, it is tricky. I mean, I think especially with weddings as well, because we do get fed, and we've spoken about, you know, when we don't get fed, we get a bit grouchy, but it is beige food most of the time. You know, it is crazy. But then we are quite active as well. So
the thing is just,
I reckon if I ate the way I ate and wasn't as active, I would be a lot bigger. I mean, I do feel I'm overweight. I would be a lot bigger, I think. If I wasn't as active, but then I guess would I then be eating the way I'm eating so I don't know.
Vicious circle, really.
It is, yeah.
But I think also on that note, just to sort of finish off for me, it's just sort of saying that if we want to continue as we are, then and as you get older, it starts to become harder. Your body doesn't recover so quickly, it doesn't tolerate things so much. It's to become you have to look after yourself. That's, you know, if you want to do the job and you want to look and you want to watch keep an eye on diabetes, you want to keep an eye on blood pressure, cholesterol, and all of those things, then you have to make that conscious effort, you know.
And it's hard. You know, it's really hard.
It is. That's right. And we haven't even got onto exercise at all, have we? So that's another thing.
No, we don't.
So so
awesome stuff.
Okay.
Well, I think we should probably wrap it up there, guys. But thanks for listening to us tell you how to eat and run your lives. Only joking. Patrons. So, I just want to say a big thank you to Rob Percy, Carl Sherville, Craig Chuck, Amara Zainab, Frank Case, Nick Payne, and Amara Zainab. There we go.
That's it. Good stuff.
Excellent.
All right, guys.
Right. Have a good one, guys.
See you next time.